Freddie Mercury is born far from the big music stages he will one day rule. As a child, he lives in Zanzibar and then goes to school in India. His real name is Farrokh Bulsara, and he is shy at first, with big front teeth and a quiet voice. People around him do not know that this quiet boy is already in love with music. He listens to records, hums tunes to himself, and pays close attention to any song he hears. At school, he starts to spend more and more time at the piano. When other children are playing outside, he often stays near the music room, trying to find his own sound. Later, his family moves to England. This move is not easy. Everything feels different. The weather, the people, the culture. He is now a teenager in a new country, trying to fit in. Sometimes he feels like an outsider, but music becomes his safe space. He joins small local bands, sings whenever he can, and slowly begins to build confidence in his voice. He notices that when he sings, people look at him differently. They pay attention. They cheer. For a boy who once felt invisible, this feels like magic. Over time, he meets other musicians who are also chasing their dreams. Together, they form the band that will become Queen. In the beginning, Queen is not famous at all. They play in small clubs where the lights are dim and the sound system is not always good. But Freddie acts on stage as if he is already in a huge stadium. He moves with energy, uses the whole stage, and treats every show like the most important night of his life. Little by little, word begins to spread. There is this band, with a singer who has an incredible voice and a bold personality. As the band grows, so does Freddie's style. He does not want to look like everyone else. He wears bright clothes, tight pants, and sometimes a crown or a cape. He loves drama and wants every performance to feel like a special event. Some people think he is too much, but others fall in love with his fearless approach. His voice becomes one of the most powerful tools in rock music. He can sing softly like a whisper, and then rise to notes that seem almost impossible. On stage, he learns how to control a crowd, how to make thousands of people sing along, clap together, and feel like one big family. While Freddie is taking this road from shy boy to rock hero, Michael Jackson is growing up in a very different world. Michael is born in Gary, Indiana, in a small house filled with many brothers and sisters. From a very young age, he sings with his brothers in a group that will become the Jackson 5. When other children his age are playing in the park or riding bicycles, Michael is standing in front of a microphone, practicing dance moves, and learning songs over and over again. His life becomes busy, with rehearsals, shows, and long days of hard work. Michael's talent shines early. Even as a child, he has a voice that sounds wise and full of emotion, as if he has lived many lives already. He can dance in a way that makes people stop and stare. When the Jackson 5 perform, audiences are amazed. They see this small boy in a bright outfit, singing with joy and moving with rhythm that seems to come from deep inside him. Very quickly, the group becomes famous. They appear on television, their songs play on the radio, and posters of Michael and his brothers hang on bedroom walls all over the country. As he grows older, Michael starts to think about who he is as an artist, not just as part of a group. He still loves his brothers, but he feels a strong fire inside him to create something new, something that belongs only to him. He begins his solo career, slowly shaping a sound that mixes pop, soul, R&B, and later rock and funk. He pays extreme attention to every detail: the beat, the melody, the harmonies, and the feeling of each song. His goal is not just to make people listen, but to make them move, to make them feel joy and excitement, to make them remember the experience long after the song ends. While Freddie is conquering live stages with Queen, Michael is becoming the master of a new kind of stage: the television screen and the music video. When Michael releases a new song, he does not just record the audio. He plans a full visual experience. He works on storylines, costumes, and dance routines. Each move has a purpose. Each shot in the video is carefully chosen. He knows that millions of people around the world will watch, and he wants every second to be unforgettable. He turns music videos into short films, raising the bar for every artist who comes after him. By the late 1970 seconds and early 1980 seconds, both men are no longer just singers. They are symbols of something bigger. Freddie represents the wild, emotional, and dramatic side of rock. When he steps on stage, it feels like watching a storm of energy and emotion. He holds a half microphone stand, like a magic wand, and uses it to guide the crowd. There are guitar solos, strong drums, and his powerful voice flying over everything. Fans travel long distances to see Queen perform, and many of them say that seeing Freddie live is an experience they never forget. Michael, on the other hand, represents perfection in sound and movement. When he appears on stage or in a music video, everything feels smooth, sharp, and exact. His dance moves are clean and unique, from the spin to the famous moonwalk. His outfits become part of pop culture. The single glove, the fedora, the red jacket, the military-style coats. People around the world try to copy his style. Children and adults practice his dance moves in their homes, in schools, and at parties. He becomes an icon not just of music, but of fashion and dance. Even though they live very different lives, Freddie and Michael share some important things. They both work extremely hard. They both chase perfection and are never fully satisfied. If a performance is good, they want the next one to be better. If a song becomes a hit, they still focus on how it could have been improved. Behind the bright lights and loud applause, there are long hours of practice and many moments of doubt. They feel pressure from the world, from their teams, and from themselves, but they also feel deep love for what they do. They also change the way people think about what a performer can be. Before Freddie, not many rock singers were so theatrical and bold. Before Michael, not many pop artists combined singing, dancing, fashion, and storytelling on such a grand level. They opened doors for others to be more creative, more brave, and more original. Young artists watch them and think, if they can be that different and still be loved, maybe I can be myself too. By this time, each of them is standing on top of his own mountain. Freddie, with Queen, is filling stadiums with fans, holding up lighters and singing along to anthems that millions know by heart. Michael is breaking records for album sales, winning awards, and seeing his music played in almost every country on earth. Their faces appear on magazine covers. Their songs travel across languages and borders. Around the world, people who have never met each other can still share one thing. They all know the words to a Queen song or a Michael Jackson hit. Yet, even as their paths look so different, they are slowly moving toward the same sky. They are both becoming more than just stars in their own fields. They are turning into legends whose names will still be spoken many years later. One rules the live stage with a band behind him and a crowd in front of him. The other rules the screen with carefully crafted performances and unforgettable moves. Both are changing music history in their own ways, each step adding to a story that the world is eager to watch. After years of ruling their own corners of the music world, Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson finally noticed each other. Both of them were now international stars, each admired for his unique kind of magic. Freddie, with his grand voice and bold stage presence, had become the symbol of rock theater. Michael, with his soft-spoken nature off stage, but unstoppable energy on stage, was now shaping the future of pop music. Even though they lived in different worlds, Freddie in rock arenas and Michael in the world of television and choreography, they shared one big thing in common: the deep love for music and the desire to keep creating something new. It was only a matter of time before their paths crossed. It started with admiration. Michael was already a fan of Queen. He would listen to their records at home, moving to the rhythm of "Another One Bites the Dust." That song, with its powerful bass line and catchy beat, fascinated him. He could see how the song could reach a much wider audience beyond rock fans. During a meeting with Queen's team, Michael reportedly said something like, "That should be a single. 1W knock. 2. His suggestion turned out to be right. The song became one of Queen's biggest global hits. Freddie later laughed about how smart Michael was for seeing what others didn't at first. Freddie, on the other hand, had heard about Michael's incredible live performances and his growing success. He was curious about the young man who could sing, dance, and charm the world all at once. When he finally met Michael in person, he saw someone shy but full of creative energy. There was no arrogance in the room, just two artists recognizing greatness in each other. Their first meeting took place in Los Angeles, sometime in the early 1980 seconds. Queen was touring, and Michael was spending a lot of time in studios, preparing new material. When they met, it wasn't a loud or dramatic moment. It was calm, friendly, and filled with mutual respect. Michael asked questions about how Queen performed live, how Freddie kept such control of huge crowds, and how they built such big songs. Freddie was curious about Michael's recording process, how he worked on sound, layers, and dance together. They both loved to laugh. Michael, though quiet, had a gentle sense of humor. And Freddie loved to tell stories that made everyone in the room smile. There are stories of them hanging out, playing music, drinking sodas, and joking around like two friends who had known each other for years. They weren't thinking about fame in those moments. They were just two musicians connecting through what they loved most. After that, an idea began to grow. What if they made music together? The thought was exciting. Both had voices that could reach people across generations. Freddie was thrilled about the idea of blending rock and pop, two worlds that rarely worked together at that time. Michael liked the thought of adding Queen's live energy to his smooth pop rhythm. They decided to try it. One afternoon, they met in the studio to experiment. There were no grand plans, just instruments, microphones, and creativity. Michael brought some unfinished song ideas. Freddie came with melodies and harmonies floating in his head. The atmosphere was full of possibility. When Michael started to sing, Freddie watched him closely, impressed by his perfect timing and tone. When Freddie sang, Michael smiled, amazed at how powerful and natural his voice was, filling the entire room without needing any effect. They began working on a few songs, including one called "There Must Be More to Life Than This." Freddie had started it earlier, and Michael added his touch. Their voices blended beautifully, Freddie's deep, dramatic power alongside Michael's smooth, emotional tone. It was something new, something magical. But the more they worked, the more they realized how different their creative processes were. Freddie liked to work quickly, following the emotion of the moment. He believed that music should flow naturally, that mistakes could even make a song feel more real. Michael, however, preferred to be precise. He wanted every note, every beat, and every breath to be perfect. He could spend hours on a small section, replaying it again and again, until it felt right. These differences didn't cause anger, but they made things complicated. Freddie would get restless, waiting for another take, while Michael would quietly focus on the sound. Their personalities were almost opposite: Freddie, loud and expressive, Michael, calm and inward. Still, both of them respected each other's process deeply. Outside the studio, life kept moving fast for both stars. Queen was touring around the world, filling massive stadiums. Every week seemed to bring a new show in a new country. Freddie loved performing, but it also left him with little time for studio projects outside the band. Michael, meanwhile, was preparing what would become his biggest project ever: Thriller. His schedule was packed with recording sessions, video shoots, dance rehearsals, and endless meetings. Whenever they tried to plan another session, something came up. One of them was always traveling, performing, or recording. Weeks turned into months, and their songs stayed unfinished. Yet, even with all the scheduling troubles, there was no bad feeling between them. They remained respectful toward each other, speaking kindly whenever they met again. Michael invited Freddie to visit him at home in California. It was not just a house, it was a small world of its own, filled with animals, games, and quiet corners where he could think and write. Freddie was amused and fascinated. He saw how Michael lived in a world very different from his own. Where Freddie loved loud parties and being surrounded by people, Michael preferred calm spaces and private creativity. They were like night and day in many ways, but the music connected them. Freddie admired how Michael's songs touched people of all ages. He loved the rhythm and the emotion behind hits like Billie Jean and Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Michael admired how Freddie turned songs into theater, how he could take a rock anthem like We Are the Champions and make a crowd of thousands sing as one. For a short while, it looked like their partnership could turn into something historic. Imagine it. The voice of Queen's frontman, mixed with the King of Pop's dance rhythm. The world could have seen a new kind of sound, powerful, emotional, and universal. But the timing wasn't right. Both of them were too busy and too focused on their own rising careers. The songs they recorded stayed in the studio, hidden away. Still, those few meetings left a mark. Each artist learned something from the other. Freddie saw how deeply Michael studied every detail of music, from production to performance. He realized how modern pop music could be built with layers and precision. Michael, on the other hand, saw the beauty of spontaneity, how Freddie could turn a simple melody into a passionate performance with emotion alone. Their friendship continued quietly for a while. They didn't meet often, but there was always mutual respect. Whenever one of them released something new, the other noticed. Michael's Thriller became the best-selling album of all time, changing the music industry forever. Freddie, meanwhile, kept leading Queen to some of their most memorable live performances. Behind the fame and the flashing lights, they were still two musicians chasing the same dream to create something unforgettable. Even if their collaboration never reached completion, it showed the world that art has no limits. Rock and pop, dramatic and smooth, loud and gentle, all could meet in one space, even for a short time. Many years later, some of the unfinished songs they worked on were finally released, giving fans a glimpse of what might have been. When people listen, they can feel both souls in the music, the energy of Freddie and the warmth of Michael. It's a reminder that, at least for a moment, these two legends stood side by side, sharing their hearts through sound. The studio door closed softly behind them, and for a moment, there was a calm silence. Freddie Mercury looked around, taking in the room where so many famous songs had been born. There were microphones, pianos, guitars, mixing boards, and a large window where the producer could watch them from the control room. Michael Jackson stood nearby, slightly quiet, hands in his pockets, but his eyes were full of focus. This was his favorite kind of place, a room where ideas turned into music. They began their session with something simple, just a piano and a melody. Freddie sat at the piano bench and let his fingers explore the keys. He did not follow a strict plan. He played a few chords, then changed them when he felt like it. He hummed different tunes until one line stood out. When it did, he sang it louder, his voice filling the studio. Michael listened carefully, nodding along, already thinking of harmonies and rhythm. Soon, Michael stepped closer to the microphone and added his own ideas. He sang a soft line under Freddie's strong melody, then switched to a higher note, testing how their voices could blend. The two sounds together were something new, Freddie's rich, powerful tone and Michael's smooth, gentle voice. Everyone in the room could feel it. There was something special happening. But as the session went on, their different styles started to show. Freddie loved to sing all the way through a song, even if he made small mistakes. He believed that emotion mattered more than perfection. If he felt the song in his heart, then the performance was true. To him, a little crack in the voice or a slightly late note was not a problem. It was human, real, and honest. Michael, on the other hand, liked to build the song piece by piece. He would sing a line, then stop and listen. He would ask to hear it again, paying attention to every small detail. Was the note exactly where he wanted it? Did the words sound clear enough? Was the timing perfect with the beat? If not, he would ask to do it again. And again. He did not mind repeating something many times if it meant reaching the sound that he heard in his head. At first, Freddie found this interesting. He admired Michael's dedication and patience. But after the 10th or 12th take of the same line, he started to feel a bit restless. He would joke around, walk in circles, or sit casually on the edge of the piano. He did not complain out loud, but his body language showed his impatience. He was used to fast, emotional recording, not slow, careful construction. Michael noticed, but he did not take it personally. He knew that every artist worked differently. For him, the studio was like a painting room, and he was the painter, adding small strokes until the picture was perfect. For Freddie, the studio was like a theater stage, and he was the actor, giving big, bold performances in the moment. Two different minds. One shared space. Sometimes, these differences led to charming moments. In the middle of a serious take, Freddie might suddenly sing a playful line, change the melody, or throw in a dramatic laugh just to lighten the mood. Michael would burst into a shy smile, trying not to laugh into the microphone. The producer, sitting behind the glass, would shake his head, but smile too. Even when they did not agree on the process, there was friendship in the room. The song, "There Must Be More to Life Than This," became one of the main tracks they worked on. It was emotional, full of longing and hope. Freddie had written it about the feeling that life must have deeper meaning beyond everyday problems. When Michael sang his parts, he brought a gentle sadness and warmth to the lyrics. Together, they turned the song into a kind of quiet conversation between two hearts. However, as they tried to finish the track, time became their biggest enemy. There were meetings, tours, and business calls pulling them in different directions. One week, Michael would be available, but Freddie would be in another country, with Queen, performing for thousands of people. The next week, Freddie would be free, but Michael would be busy shooting a video, recording vocals, or planning his next big move. They tried to schedule more sessions. Plans were made, then changed, and then delayed. The studio staff would prepare everything, expecting the two stars to arrive, but sometimes only one could make it. Without both of them in the same room, it was hard to keep the special spark they had created together. Slowly, their collaborations moved from the front of their minds to the back, pushed aside by the weight of their separate careers. Inside the studio, there were also quiet, unspoken tensions. Nothing loud or unfriendly, just small moments of difference. For example, when Michael wanted to add extra layers of sound, carefully stacking harmonies one on top of another, Freddie sometimes worried that the song would lose its raw, live feeling. When Freddie suggested a bold change in the melody at the last minute, Michael sometimes worried it would disturb the careful structure he had been building. They never argued in a harsh way, but they did sometimes look at each other with a mix of respect and confusion. Even so, both of them were learning. Freddie began to understand more about the future of pop production, how beats could be polished, how sounds could be shaped with new techniques, how a studio could become an instrument itself. Michael, meanwhile, saw how powerful a first take could be when it came from a place of pure emotion. He watched Freddie stand at the microphone, close his eyes, and sing as if he were in front of a stadium crowd, even though only a few people could hear him. There were moments when the two of them would sit away from the microphones, just talking. They spoke about the pressure of fame, the expectations from the public, and the constant attention from managers and media. They understood each other in a way that not many people could. Both had climbed to incredible heights, but they knew that at the top, the air could sometimes feel thin and lonely. They also talked about their dreams. Freddie dreamed of always surprising his audience, of making every concert feel like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Michael dreamed of creating music and visuals that would live on long after he was gone, something that children and their children could still enjoy. Each man saw in the other a mirror of his own ambition, but shining in a different direction. As days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months, their studio work slowed down. Some of the songs remained unfinished, stored carefully on tapes and locked away. No one was angry. No one blamed the other. Life simply moved forward. The music industry was fast, and so were their lives. Freddie had to focus on Queen's tours and albums. Michael had to focus on his solo projects, which were becoming larger and more complex with every year. Sometimes people around them would ask, "When will you two finish those songs?" The answer was always hopeful. Soon, when the time is right. But the right time never quite came. Other songs, other projects, and other responsibilities kept arriving, and the window of calm they needed together grew smaller and smaller. Still, the memories of those sessions stayed with them. Freddie would occasionally mention Michael in interviews, always with kind words. He might joke about how serious Michael could be in the studio, but then admit that the results were always impressive. Michael, though more private, kept his respect for Freddie in his heart. He knew that Freddie's stage power was something rare, something that could not be easily explained. In the end, those studio days became a beautiful what if in music history. They showed that even when two great talents do not finish what they start, the attempt itself can be meaningful. In that small room, for those short periods of time, two very different creative worlds met. They did not fully blend, but they touched. And that touch left a quiet echo in the songs, in the tapes, and in the memories of everyone who was there. Many years later, when some of the recordings were finally polished and shared with the public, listeners could hear traces of the story behind them. The careful production, the emotional singing, the mixture of styles. It was like opening a time capsule, one that held not only music but also a rare meeting of minds. And though the collaboration did not become a long-running partnership, it prepared the way for the next part of their journey. The part where the world, not the studio, would decide how to compare them, often turning their names into a versus, even when they had never seen each other as enemies at all. As the years passed, Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson kept climbing higher in their own ways. They were no longer just famous singers. They had become symbols of whole styles of music. Without planning it, they found themselves standing on two different peaks of the same mountain, one called rock, the other called pop. People love to compare things. They compare teams, movies, and even friends. So it was no surprise that, as Freddie and Michael grew more and more successful, the world began to place them side by side in conversations. Who is the better performer? Whose voice is stronger? Who controls the crowd more? These questions started to appear in magazines, on television, and in everyday talks between fans. In the early 1980 seconds, Michael's album Thriller changed the music world. The songs were catchy, the videos were creative, and his dancing was like nothing people had seen before. He moved smoothly, almost as if he were made of water and rhythm. When he performed the famous backward slide that became known as the moonwalk, the world watched in surprise and joy. Children and adults tried to copy it at home in front of mirrors. His carefully designed videos turned every new release into a global event. At the same time, Freddie was leading Queen from one great performance to another. The band was known for songs that felt like anthems, songs that whole crowds could sing together. Freddie's voice was full of strength, and he used the stage as if it were his kingdom. He ran from one side to the other, used his microphone stand like a prop, and played with the audience, getting them to clap, sing, and respond to his every move. When Queen played live, the crowd did not just listen. They became part of the show. The most famous moment that showed Freddie's gift for live performance came at the 1985 Live Aid concert in London. The stadium was huge, filled with people, and millions more were watching on television at home. Queen's set was not long, but it was powerful. From the first song, Freddie had the crowd in his hands. He made them sing back to him, hitting high and low notes, turning a giant stadium into one giant choir. Many people later said that Queen stole the show that day, and Freddie's performance became a moment that music fans would talk about for decades. While Freddie was shining on live stages, Michael was ruling the television screen and record charts. His albums sold millions of copies across the world. His videos for songs like Billie Jean, Beat It, and Thriller were played again and again. He understood that in this new era, people were not just listening to music, they were watching it. He made sure every detail in his videos was meaningful. The outfits, the dance routines, the sets, every move was a part of the story. Because of all this, a quiet versus began to grow, not between the two men themselves, but in the minds of fans and the media. Magazine covers showed both faces. Articles compared their voices, their fashion, even their hair. Some people said Freddie was the greatest frontman because he could make tens of thousands of people sing with just a wave of his hand. Others said Michael was the greatest performer because he mixed singing, dancing, and storytelling into one perfect package. In reality, Freddie and Michael were not thinking of each other as rivals. They were too busy working, writing, and trying to keep up with their own high standards. Each of them had his own challenges to face. Long tours, recording deadlines, interviews, and the pressure to always do better than before. The biggest competition in their lives was not with each other, but with their own past success. Each new song had to be as good as, or better than, the last hit. Each new show had to feel stronger than the one before. Still, the public versus image was hard to escape. In fan groups, debates started. Some fans admired Queen's instruments and rock energy, while others were in love with Michael's rhythm and dance. In record stores, their albums sometimes sat on nearby shelves, and people would stand there wondering which one to buy with their saved money. Radio stations played their songs back to back, making the comparisons feel even more real. What made the situation interesting was how different their strengths were. Freddie's gift was connection. On stage, he made every person feel included, whether they were in the front row or at the very back of a huge stadium. He did not just sing at people, he sang with them. When he performed songs like Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, or We Are the Champions, the crowd responded like a wave, rising and falling with his every move. It was a shared experience, almost like a friendly conversation between artist and audience. Michael's gift was precision and imagination. He could take an idea and shape it until it was smooth, strong, and unforgettable. His shows were carefully prepared, with dance steps, lighting, and music all working together. When he stepped on stage, it was like watching a dream come to life. People did not just hear his songs. They felt like they were inside a movie. He wanted his performances to be memories people would carry with them for the rest of their lives. Because the world often likes simple stories, many people tried to make their differences into a kind of game. Rock star versus pop star. Wild performer versus polished dancer. Stadium king versus video king. But the truth was more gentle and more complex. They were two artists, walking along different paths, both reaching huge numbers of people, both changing music in their own ways. There were times when journalists tried to get them to speak badly about other artists, but neither Freddie nor Michael was interested in that. Freddie could be playful and sharp in interviews, but he respected skill when he saw it. Michael, shy and careful with his words, often spoke with kindness about those he admired. They both knew how hard it was to stay at the top and how much effort it took behind the scenes. Meanwhile, new artists were growing up watching both of them. Young singers, guitarists, dancers, and band members studied Freddie's stage presence and Michael's moves. Some dreamed of forming bands like Queen. Others dreamed of dancing across the stage like Michael. In bedrooms around the world, posters of both stars hung side by side on the same walls. Even if the media liked to say versus, many fans simply said both. As the 1,980 seconds went on, their careers continued to move in huge waves. Queen kept recording and touring, adding new songs to their already impressive list. Michael kept releasing popular music and creating videos that people would talk about the next day at school or work. Their names became part of everyday life. A party was not complete without someone singing a Queen chorus or trying to spin and slide like Michael on the dance floor. Yet, with all of this, their paths did not cross in public very often. There were no big shared tours or joint concerts. The collaborations they started in the studio remained mostly hidden. So the Freddie versus Michael idea stayed mostly imaginary, built from headlines, fan opinions, and the natural human habit of comparing heroes. If someone had been able to step back and look at the big picture, they would have seen something beautiful. Not a fight, but a balance. Freddie showed what live rock music could become when a singer treated the stage like a living artwork. Michael showed what modern pop could become when an artist used every tool, sound, image, movement to tell a story. Instead of canceling each other out, they made the entire music world bigger. In the middle of all this noise about who was better, both men kept doing the same simple thing that had started their journeys as children. They kept making music. They wrote, they recorded, they rehearsed, and they performed. The louder the crowd became, the more they tried to give back. Each note, each move, each line of every song was their way of saying, "This is who I am. This is what I can share with you." Over time, people began to understand that some questions do not really need answers. Asking whether Freddie was greater than Michael, or Michael was greater than Freddie, was like asking whether the sun is better than the moon. Both shine, but in different ways. Both are needed. And the pause. Both make the sky more beautiful. And so the public versus lived mostly on paper and in conversation. In real life, their stories were not about fighting against each other, but about each one trying to be the best version of himself. The next part of their story would show how their legacies, though very different, would both become part of music history forever. Time moved forward, as it always does, and the world around Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson kept changing. New artists appeared, new styles became popular, and technology moved quickly. But even as trends shifted, their names stayed bright. They were no longer just today's stars. They were slowly becoming legends. For Freddie, the late 1,980 seconds were a time of both creativity and challenge. He continued recording with Queen, making songs that showed not only power, but also deep feeling. Even as his health quietly began to suffer, he kept going into the studio. He did not talk much in public about his condition. Instead, he focused on the work. His bandmates talked later about how strong he was, how he would walk into the studio, sing with all his heart, and then rest only when the song was done. He knew that music was the gift he could leave behind, and he wanted that gift to be as beautiful as possible. In 1991, Freddie's journey on Earth came to an end. The news spread across the world, and many people felt as if they had lost a friend. Fans gathered outside his home, outside concert halls, and in city squares, singing Queen songs together. There were tears, but there was also a powerful sense of love. The world realized just how much this one man had given through his voice, his energy, and his fearless way of being himself on stage. Over time, concerts were held in his memory, statues were built, and his story continued to be told to new generations. Michael Jackson's story continued for many more years after Freddie's passing. He released more albums, performed huge tours, and kept creating music that reached millions of people. He tried new sounds, mixed different styles, and worked with younger artists. He also used his fame to support causes he cared about, sharing messages of peace, care for the earth, and kindness toward children and those in need. Songs like Heal the World and Man in the Mirror showed that he was not only thinking about dance moves and chart success, but also about how music could inspire people to be more gentle and caring. As time went on, however, his life also became more complicated in the eyes of the public. There were many stories, questions, and opinions around him. The media paid close attention to everything he did, not only as an artist but as a person. Some people focused on his appearance, others on his personal choices, and others on reports about his private life. Through all of this, his love for music never left. He continued to rehearse, write, and plan new shows, always trying to bring something special to his audience. In 2009, while preparing for a new series of concerts, Michael's own life came to an early end as well. Once again, the world stopped for a moment. People from many countries spoke about what his songs had meant to them. Fans danced in the streets, played his music loudly, and shared memories of the first time they had seen him perform on television or heard his voice on the radio. Just like with Freddie, there was a mix of sadness and gratitude, a feeling that even though his time was over, his art would never really disappear. After both men were gone, the idea of Freddie Mercury versus Michael Jackson took on a new shape. Now the comparison was not about who might release a bigger album next year, or who might have a more successful tour. Instead, it became part of a larger discussion about legacy. People asked, who changed music more? Whose performances still feel fresh today? Whose songs will people still be singing many years from now? Old recordings and videos started to appear more and more often on television, and later, on the internet. Clips of Freddie at Live Aid, playing piano and leading a crowd like a joyful commander, were watched by young people who had not even been born when the concert took place. Videos of Michael performing the moonwalk, or standing perfectly still while the crowd screamed in excitement, reached new viewers who had only heard his name from their parents. The digital age kept both of them alive in screens and speakers all over the world. And then there were the songs they had tried to make together. Some of those recordings, once locked away on tapes and stored in rooms no one outside the studio could see, were finally shared with the public. After many years, fans listened carefully, knowing they were hearing something rare. The sound of two legends in the same space, singing lines that had waited a long time to be heard. These tracks were like small windows into another possible world, a world where they might have finished a whole album together, or even performed on stage side by side. The versus idea slowly softened in the hearts of many listeners. Instead of asking, who was better, more people began to say, look how both of them gave us so much. Freddie showed what it meant to stand in front of a crowd and be completely free, using his body, his clothes, his voice, and his imagination to turn a concert into a shared dream. Michael showed what it meant to build a complete performance from the ground up, thinking about every sound and every step until the result felt almost magical. Young performers continued to borrow from both of them. A singer might study Queen's songs to learn how to build big, emotional choruses, and then watch Michael's videos to learn how to move with the music. A band might try to write a song that lets the audience sing along like a Queen anthem, then design a stage show with sharp dance routines inspired by Michael. In this way, the two men stood not on opposite sides, but as two pillars holding up the same bridge that new artists could walk across. Their lives also started to be told in books, documentaries, and films. Actors played them on screen. Writers tried to understand what had driven them, what they had feared, and what they had loved most. Of course, no movie or book could capture every detail or feeling, but each new telling brought another generation to their music. A teenager might watch a film about Freddie Mercury and then run to listen to Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time. A child might see a clip of Michael dancing and then spend hours trying to slide across the floor in socks, laughing every time they fell but getting back up again. Through all of this, the deeper truth behind their story became clearer. There never really needed to be a fight between Freddie versus Michael. The world had room for both. It always had. Their strengths were different, their paths were different, and even their dreams, though similar in size, took different shapes. Yet in the end, they both reached a place that very few people ever do. They became part of the soundtrack of human life. Songs for parties, songs for quiet nights, songs for car rides, songs for celebrations, and for moments of reflection. If one imagines them now, beyond time and beyond all the noise of the media, it is easy to picture something gentle and peaceful. Perhaps Freddie is at a piano, smiling that playful smile, testing a new melody. Perhaps Michael is standing nearby, listening, thinking of a rhythm to match it, maybe tapping his foot softly on the ground. There is no competition in that picture, only curiosity and respect. The same feelings they had when they first met in a studio all those years ago. Their story teaches a quiet lesson. Greatness does not always mean defeating someone else. Sometimes, greatness means standing fully in who you are, offering your gifts to the world, and allowing others to do the same. Freddie Mercury did that. Michael Jackson did that. The fact that people still listen, still sing, still dance, and still talk about them today is proof that their light did not fade when their lives ended. It simply spread. And so, when people today ask, who was better, Freddie or Michael, there is a simple, kind answer. Both were special in their own way. One brought rock crowds to their feet with power and drama. The other made the whole world move with rhythm and imagination. Together, even without meaning to, they helped shape what modern music is. Their names no longer need the word verses between them. They can simply stand side by side, two stars in the same wide sky, shining for anyone who needs a song.